built to process the new data. It's just a fact.
Right. And welcome to today's custom tailored deep dive, by the way. But when we transition into human psychology, we suddenly expect our old mental hardware to seamlessly run entirely new realities.
Yeah, we really do.
We try to boot up this massive life change, a new career, a higher standard for relationships, a bolder creative project, using the exact same mental operating system we've relied on for years.
Which is a guaranteed recipe for a crash.
Exactly. That glitch, that systemic crash of the human mind, is exactly what we are debugging today for you. We're unpacking a highly concentrated source today, a piece called The Cocoon Phase: Breaking Old Mindsets for Growth.
It's a really provocative piece, very dense.
Super dense. And our mission today is to take these rapid fire introspective questions from the text, organize them, and figure out a cohesive roadmap for your own personal transformation. Like, how does this mysterious cocoon phase actually operate?
Well, what I love about this source material is that even though it's brief, it acts as a mirror. I mean, it strips away all those typical self-help platitudes.
Yeah, it doesn't hold back.
Not at all. It actively challenges you to confront your own self-imposed limitations. Because the foundational premise is that most of us are operating with a past self mindset.
Right.
We're trying to build new success on top of old beliefs, which, like your computer analogy, is an architectural impossibility.
Okay, let's unpack this past self trap because, it sounds really obvious on the surface, but the mechanics of it are incredibly stubborn.
They are deeply stubborn.
The source hits us with these questions right out of the gate. Are you using an old mindset and still thinking like your past self?
And then it asks the big one: can old beliefs build new success?
Right, which we know they can't. But if this old hardware is crashing our lives and keeping us stagnant, why do we keep booting it up?
That's the $1 million question.
I mean, the text asks, what if you're the blocker? If we are our own blockers, why is it so incredibly hard for us to realize we are the ones standing in the doorway?
To understand that blindness, you really have to look at the neuroscience of how beliefs are formed in the first place.
Okay, lay it on us.
So, your brain is essentially an energy conservation machine. It loves efficiency more than anything.
It's lazy, basically.
Kind of, yeah. When you encounter a problem early in life, say navigating a highly critical boss or dealing with an unpredictable childhood, you develop a coping mechanism.
क्यों
Like
भेजा था वो?
perfectionism, maybe.
Exactly, perfectionism, or maybe flying under the radar and just staying quiet.
नहीं,
Right. And because
वो
that
तो
behavior worked to keep you safe
उसको
in that specific environment, the brain rewards it.
It does way more than just reward it, it hardwires it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the brain wraps those specific neural pathways in a fatty substance called myelin, which acts...
Wait, myelin?
Yeah, myelin. It acts like insulation on an electrical wire. It makes that specific thought pattern incredibly fast and almost entirely automatic.
So it's literally structural.
Yes, so your brain doesn't view your old mindset as a limitation or a blocker at all. It views it as a highly optimized, proven survival strategy.
Wow. So you don't realize you're the blocker because, to your subconscious, you aren't blocking success. You're actively preventing danger.
Precisely. You are surviving.
So we are just walking around wearing this heavy cognitive armor, completely unaware that the war ended like 5 years ago. We're still applying old survival code to new environments.
That's exactly it.
It's like you literally cannot use a map of New York to navigate Tokyo, no matter how much you love that map or how well it kept you from getting lost in the past.
I'd actually take that a step further. It isn't just that the map is wrong, it's that your brain will actively flood your system with anxiety if you try to put the old map away.
Really?
Yeah, which leads us to a massive paradox in human behavior. We are genuinely terrified of our own growth.
Here's where it gets really interesting because the text asks exactly that. Why fear your own growth, and what are you avoiding right now?
And people hate answering that second one.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But it made me stop and think. We all claim we want to grow. You buy the books, you listen to deep dives like this one, you set ambitious goals.
But then nothing happens.
Right. There's this profound friction. The text asks, is fear stopping your next step? And the answer is almost always yes. We end up avoiding the exact steps required to move forward.
Because on a biological level, your brain cannot distinguish between a threat to your physical body and a threat to your identity.
Wait, really? It treats identity change like a physical attack.
Yes. When you decide to outgrow your past self, you're essentially signaling to your brain, that the old identity needs to be dismantled.
Oh, wow.
And to the amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center identity change, feels like a form of psychological death.
That explains so much about self sabotage. I always wondered why, like, right before a major breakthrough, people tend to pick a massive fight with their partner.
Or suddenly decide they need to reorganize their entire garage instead of finishing a project proposal.
Yes. I'm completely guilty of the garage thing. I mean, why do we do that?
Because the text asks, what is your mind hiding? And what is hiding is that this is a defense mechanism. Your mind is incredibly skilled at hiding the reality of your potential by creating urgent distractions.
So the garage feels urgent, but it's just a smokescreen.
Exactly. It manufactures procrastination or sudden doubt or an obsession with minor details, all to keep you safely tucked inside your known identity.
Because the unknown, even a highly successful unknown, registers as a threat.
It's a threat environment to the amygdala, always.
Which means the discomfort we feel when we try to take a step forward isn't a warning sign that we're making a mistake.
Right.
The source asks, what if growth feels uncomfortable? And I guess the answer is, it's supposed to. It's actually the prerequisite for a cognitive shift.
It's mandatory.
True growth requires a mini destruction of who you used to be. You literally cannot become the new version of yourself without letting the old version die off a little bit.
And naturally, that old self is going to kick and scream on the way out.
And that kicking and screaming is exactly what we spend our lives trying to avoid. We veer away from the pain of identity destruction.
Of course we do.
It hurts. We want the new career, we want the peace of mind, but we absolutely refuse to deal with the messy, uncomfortable dismantling of our current habits.
We want the butterfly, but we want to skip the cocoon.
Yes. Okay, let's really lean into this cocoon metaphor because the source asks, how do we link it to cocoon phase? And I think this fundamentally changes how we view personal development.
It really does.
Because, the common perception of a cocoon is this cozy, silken sleeping bag where a caterpillar takes a nice long nap and magically wakes up with wings.
A spa retreat for bugs.
Right, a spa retreat. But biologically, that is a complete myth, right?
But completely. What's fascinating here is what actually happens inside a chrysalis. There is no sleeping caterpillar slowly sprouting wings.
It's much darker than that.
Way darker. The caterpillar releases enzymes that literally dissolve its own tissues. It digests itself.
Ugh, that's horrifying.
It turns into an organic, disorganized soup. It is a site of absolute biological and structural dismantling.
Okay, as gross as that is, here is where it gets incredibly relevant to our psychological journey. Inside that biological soup, there are these things called imaginal cells, right?
Yes, imaginal cells.
And they hold the blueprint for the butterfly. But initially, the caterpillar's old immune system doesn't recognize these new cells.
It actually fights them.
That blows my mind. It tries to kill off the very cells trying to build its future.
It's a phenomenal parallel for cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
When you try to adopt a new mindset, your old mental immune system goes on the attack.
So your old insecurities and fears actively try to suppress the new, bolder thoughts.
Exactly. This period of internal conflict, this fluid, messy state where the old rules are dissolved but the new identity hasn't fully formed, that is the true psychological cocoon phase.
So if the cocoon phase is this chaotic and our old habits are actively fighting our new goals, how do we survive the soup? Like, how does updating your thinking daily, which is another question from the text act, as the anchor while everything else is in total flux?
Well, it comes down to a crucial distinction that the source brings up. Are you reacting or reframing today?
Reacting versus reframing.
Okay. When you are in the cocoon phase, your default mode network is going to throw intense emotional reactions at you.
Because you're in the soup.
Right. And reacting is pure instinct. It's the old hardware running the show. It's the fear that tells you to abandon the project or the anger that flares up when you get constructive feedback.
So reacting is the old immune system attacking the butterfly cells.
Yes. But reframing is a high-level executive function. It is the deliberate engagement of your prefrontal cortex.
Okay, so it takes actual effort.
A lot of effort.
Yeah.
Reframing is the active work of looking at a terrifying situation, acknowledging the fear, and consciously choosing to interpret it differently.
Okay, I want to make this highly practical for you listening because conscious interpretation sounds great in theory, but when you're in the middle of a panic spiral, it's incredibly hard to do.
It's near impossible if you don't have a strategy.
So let's walk through a micro scenario. Let's say you're launching a new business venture. You're about to hit send on a massive proposal to an investor, and suddenly you are completely paralyzed.
Your chest is tight.
Your chest is tight, your brain is screaming, you aren't qualified for this, they're gonna laugh at you, just close the laptop. How do you actually execute a reframe in that exact moment?
Well, first, you have to separate the emotion from reality. You have to realize that the source's question, can you see beyond emotions,
Hmm.
is the literal task at hand. Emotions are just data points, they're not objective truths.
Okay, so in that moment of paralysis, the reaction is to believe the fear is like a premonition of failure.
Right. And the reframe is not toxic positivity. You don't just stand in the mirror and shout, I am a guaranteed success.
Because you'd feel like a fraud.
Exactly. That doesn't work because your brain knows you're lying.
The brain demands evidence.
It demands logical cognitive reappraisal. You sit with that tight chest and you tell yourself, this fear is not a sign that I'm unqualified. This fear is simply my old identity trying to survive.
Wow.
Sending this email is the enzyme dissolving that old identity. The discomfort means I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's brilliant. You attach the fear to the mechanism of growth rather than to the outcome of the email. You essentially relabel the anxiety as the feeling of your brain rewriting its own code.
And that answers another question from the source. Are you choosing fear or clarity? You are choosing clarity about what the fear actually represents.
But doing that once isn't going to permanently change anything, is it? I mean, the old neural pathways are so heavily insulated with that myelin, they're going to try to reassert themselves tomorrow morning.
Which is why the source asks, are you updating your thinking daily? This cannot be a one-time revelation. The rewrite process requires relentless daily vigilance.
Every single day in the cocoon phase.
Every day. You have to actively update your thinking. Neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to form new connections, requires repetition and emotional intensity.
You are literally building the new neural pathways, the new wings, thought by thought, day by day.
So the discomfort isn't a side effect of the work. The discomfort is the actual work.
I love that. If you aren't feeling that friction, you aren't reframing, you're just reacting.
Well,
And if you're just reacting, you're stuck in the caterpillar phase, wondering why nothing is changing.
and, that daily effort eventually reaches a tipping point. The structural rebuilding finishes. The new neural pathways become more heavily myelinated than the old ones.
The new mindset becomes the default.
Exactly. But a cocoon is fundamentally a temporary state. It's not designed to be a permanent residence.
Which brings us to the emergence. Section 4 of our roadmap. The transition from the internal, messy work of reframing to the external reality of taking action.
Time to leave the chrysalis.
Right, so we've dismantled the old self, we've sat in the uncomfortable soup, we've practiced the daily cognitive reappraisal. The next logical step, according to the text, is to answer, who are you becoming today, and what is your next bold shift?
You have to trust the newly built mindset.
But I have to push back here on behalf of anyone listening who is in the thick of this right now. The text asks, can you trust yourself today? But trusting this brand new, unproven mindset feels incredibly reckless.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Your new wings are wet. They're fragile. Stepping out into the real world at this exact moment feels like jumping off a cliff and hoping evolution kicks in before you hit the pavement.
It feels reckless because you are stripped of your old armor, and your new tools haven't been tested in battle yet.
Yeah.
It is a moment of profound vulnerability.
So, what does this all mean for the listener? How do they jump?
Well, that vulnerability is the absolute core of emergence. You have already done the grueling work of developing the new thinking. You survived the dissolution.
Right.
The only thing standing between you and the new reality you want is the hesitation to use the machinery you just built, which is why the text asks, why delay your own growth?
We delay our own growth at this stage because staying in the cocoon starts to masquerade as productivity.
Like, yes, the productivity trap.
You think, I just need to read one more book on leadership, or I just need to journal about this for another month before I launch. Endless analysis becomes its own sophisticated form of hiding.
I'm really glad you brought that up because it's a very common trap. Delaying your growth at the emergence stage is a lingering attachment to the illusion of safety.
You're waiting for a guarantee.
You're waiting for the fear to hit zero. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the willingness to act while the fear is still present.
You don't wait for the wings to dry completely before you jump, because the act of falling is what catches the wind.
That is the essence of making a bold shift. The text asks, are you ready to think bigger? And thinking bigger isn't just about setting a higher financial target or like creating a grander vision board.
What is it then?
Thinking bigger means trusting that your new psychological architecture can handle the weight of reality. It forces you out of the hypothetical and into the present moment.
Because the text challenges us with, what if success needs new thinking? And then follows it up with, what if now is your moment? It demands urgency. It removes all the padding. You've identified the archaic software, you've uninstalled the old mindset, you've done the messy work of writing the new code. At some point, you just have to hit run.
And that requires a calculated leap of faith. But notice, it is calculated.
Right, it's not blind optimism.
Exactly. You aren't trusting the past version of yourself that would have failed under these new demands. You are trusting the newly structured version of yourself that is specifically equipped through all that daily reframing for this exact challenge.
You're no longer reacting to the world, you're stepping forward with clarity.
Yes.
Man, this has been an incredibly intense journey today. We started by recognizing that our past self mindset isn't just a bad habit. It is deeply insulated neural circuitry that actively resists being updated because it thinks it's keeping us alive.
Survival code.
Right. And then we confronted the reality that the fear of our own potential is just the brain trying to avoid the biological cost of identity destruction.
We examined the true nature of the cocoon, too, not as a place of rest, but as an active daily battleground. The soup, where we must constantly utilize our prefrontal cortex to reframe our emotional reactions. We learned that updating your thinking is a mechanical, repetitive process of choosing clarity over the instinct to hide.
And finally, we looked at the necessity of emergence, the demand to stop delaying, to recognize when preparation has turned into procrastination.
What happens if you make your cocoon too comfortable? What happens if you become so addicted to the process of introspection, so obsessed with self-help analysis and shadow work, that you never actually subject your new mindset to the friction of the real world?
Oh, wow.
Is it possible that right now you are mistaking permanent isolation for temporary transformation?
That is a chilling thought to end on. Because if you install the world's most advanced operating system, but you never actually restart the computer, are you really any better off than you were before? Think about that. Until next time, keep diving deep. You know, it's a uniquely modern frustration when you try to run like brand new high intensity software on a computer that's a decade old.
Oh, absolutely. It's the worst.
Right. You double click the icon, the internal fan starts screaming like a jet engine, and then
You get that spinning wheel of death.
yes, spinning wheel of death, and then just a complete systemic crash.
Ah.
Because the hardware literally cannot handle the demands of the new operating system.
And we just accept that reality without question when it comes to our laptops. I mean, we understand there's a structural limitation there.
Exactly.
The old architecture simply wasn't built to process the new data. It's just a fact.
Right. And welcome to today's custom tailored deep dive, by the way. But when we transition into human psychology, we suddenly expect our old mental hardware to like seamlessly run entirely new realities.
Yeah, we really do.
We try to boot up this massive life change, a new career, a higher standard for relationships, a bolder creative project, using the exact same mental operating system we've relied on for years.
Which is a guaranteed recipe for a crash.
Exactly. That glitch, that systemic crash of the human mind, is exactly what we are debugging today for you. We're unpacking a highly concentrated source today, a piece called The Cocoon Phase, Breaking Old Mindsets for Growth.
It's a really provocative